Hello. So hopefully today I'll give you a brief recap of where we are with regards to the work that's being done on the house. Obviously, I had to take a back seat uh, to deal with the work that was being done because it was just more than one person on their own can do. I'm fine on the ground picking away at walls, but when it comes to getting up on the roof and taking down great big bloody lumps of stone, I need a little bit more of a professional touch. So where were we? We got the the fireplace sorted. We got the lintel put in and the hole filled and made strong enough so that the wall will stay in place, God willing. But then the question was, do you want to have a real fire in there? And yeah, obviously I do want to have a real fire. So that meant that the plug of concrete that we'd discovered in the chimney was going to have to come out. That would involve chiseling away at the Harlan on the gable end, and that was not a small undertaking by any means. So that was the first job, and that would involve taking out, basically chiseling back the Harlan, chiseling out the concrete that was in there, which luckily didn't turn out to be quite as bad as the initial assessment indicated. So, so yeah, we got through that, but that also meant that the coping skews would need to come off. So the chimney stack had to come down. Then the coping skews would have to come off at some point. But an initial job, they were just chiseling out uh, the concrete plug and getting it down to the point where you could actually see down into the fireplace in the downstairs room. So we got that done, and then it was a case of dealing with the coping skews on the sides. They would need to come off as well because obviously they're butting up against the chimney, and they were in a pretty blown state as well. In fact, when we got them down, they were only about that thick, and they were literally coming apart like slate almost. So they were completely gone, and they just needed to come off. So they had to be taken down. But at the same time, all the Harlan had to be peeled back. Um, so all the Harlan was peeled back, and um, and then that revealed what was going on with the rest of the wall. And as you can probably see, it wasn't pretty. So there was some initial pointing that needed to be done um, on that, just to get it to a point where the wall was stable enough that they could start working on putting the coping skews back on. So that was a fair bit of muck and mortar that was chucked in at that point, and that was just to make sure that the stones that were on the outside of the wall weren't going to just drop out as they had done in the previous parts of the house. So there was a lot of patching that went on to fill in the cracks and the gaps. But during the course of that, we got to a point where obviously once the coping skews come off, then the concrete that holds them in place also holds the tiles on the roof in place. And so what do we want to do about that? Well, obviously we needed to get them done as well. And that meant taking the tiles back. But during the course of that, we found out that the dormer window, the flashing had gone on that and was letting quite a bit of moisture down through, or water down through the side of the house that we haven't yet exposed. Um, but luckily, the timbers seem to be fairly good. The sarkin at the bottom uh, here is was had some woodworm, so I'm not completely convinced we haven't seen the back of the wood. We've seen the back of the woodworm, but yeah. So that was what do you want to do there? Well, obviously we need to make that good. So that meant peeling back the tiles, cutting the sarkin that butted up against the gable end away to the first rafter, and then putting new bits of sarkin up there so that they could put the tiles back up. So effectively retiling that corner of the property. So once that was done, then it was a case of putting the coping skews back on. And the coping skews went back on okay, no bother. And they've got a little metal bracket to hold them to stop them sliding off the house. People in Scotland have been killed by bigger stones than the ones we've got, admittedly. But I mean, one of these stones dropping off a house will kill you. And people have died in Scotland as a result of being hit by these bloody stones. So you have to have them checked pretty regular. But they're in now, and they look a damn sight better. Uh, the only problem being now that it's a bit like your car. We've made a clean bit. Now the whole house looks, the rest of the house needs work. Um, but yeah, so that was what I was talking about in the video about saying, well, hopefully we'll see the thing. That was the day before the Italy game, I think, and so they had to do a prep, and then there were more muck that needed to go on there just to get a nice smooth surface on the gable end, so that when they come to apply the Harlan, which is loose chippings, basically stone chippings, it would come would just apply in an even thing and would look nice, as it does, as you'll see. So yeah, that's pretty much covered in the space of what, 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes. It's covered what has effectively been about 3 or 4 weeks worth of work, and I've had to take a break after that because obviously it was hard going. I mean, I helped by loading up the truck and taking the rubble that was coming off. All the Harlan that came off had to go, and I had to take that to the tip and go through the interrogation that I had to explain that I'm not an actual full-time commercial builder. I'm just renovating my house. But yeah, they're fine up there. They weren't too much of a problem, but I did have to fill out a form each time, which is great fun. But yeah, so probably about 5 runs to the tip in the end with 10 40-litre trugs. God knows how much weight there was to that. But that's got us to the stage where we are now, where we've got a lovely, clean, sharp-edged, harled gable end on one end of the house. And what's left for me to do now is go back down into the room and take the ceiling down, expose the remaining 2 more walls that are remaining to be exposed, and I expect to find exactly the same kind of situation behind those. And then I will be looking at repointing and re-rendering those walls. As I said before, I'm not sure what kind of a job I should do on that. I mean, I want it to look nice, so I mean, I'll do it, but ultimately it'll be hidden, and I may have to have a think about that. I'm kind of inclined to use lime mortar on this because it's rumored to be the best thing for wicking out moisture in the walls, and God knows that wall's had some moisture down it over the years. So we're going to do that. So I'll take the ceilings down in the downstairs room, get a look at the joists, see what state they're in, because of that 4-inch gap that was left between the stud partition and the walls. There's a lot of moisture's been running down there. There was no insulation, incidentally, behind any of that. You'll have seen that in the previous videos. There was no insulation there. And the reason I think for that was because there was water coming down the side of the house. And if it hit any insulation, it would have just wicked it and created and ruined the plasterboard. So this whole place has been a wee plasterboard cocoon surrounded by a waterfall on 4 sides, for a better word, because the ceiling wasn't really done. I mean, I'll make it sound worse than it was, but I mean, it's not great. And so that does mean that there's work to be done. Obviously, once all the walls that need to be exposed and the ceiling's down, then I'll go up to the next one, the room upstairs, take the ceiling down there. That's going to involve taking out a load of fiberglass, which is not going to be nice, and checking the state of the timbers, because that will be where the money gets spent next, more than likely, because we'll have to make sure the ceiling's sound. The other side of the property where I'm living at the moment is probably in a similar situation, although they seem to think that the coping skis were in a better state there. So maybe we'll be other, and the Harlan's not quite so bad as it looks. A bit more recent. That looks like might have had been. The thing is, what drove them to do that more recently, and that just means possibly there's been more damage done. Who knows? But we can only expose what we can afford to repair at the moment. So I'm just going to do what I can on that. But for the next few weeks, that's going to be my main task, is to try and expose the walls, get them cleared back, pick them, repoint them, get a loan of a cement mixer. The builders we used were really great. He's actually offered to lend me one of his cement mixers for doing the inside, so that's really useful. So shout out to them. And that's it. I mean, if you've been subscribed, thank you. If you leave a like, thank you even more. If you manage to stick it out, I commend you, because I'm not the easiest person to listen to, I admit. But hopefully things will pick up on the property side. I'm still taking the dogs out for walks and all the rest of it, obviously, and if I see anything useful. I mean, we've had orcas off the coast recently. They've been hunting the local seals, I guess. So that's a bit of a rare event up in these parts, even for this far north. Not seen any dolphins yet, but if that comes up, then obviously we'll do a bit of that. I mean, I'm trying to, like I said, this isn't a full-time renovation job. I've got a full-time job to do as well. So I'm doing what I can between walking them and earning the money to pay for all this. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully I can keep it entertaining or at least interesting. If I fail to do that, then I'll give up and try something else. But I'll still be here plugging away at this house. So if nothing else, I'm documenting it for my own benefit as much as anything, so that when I'm eventually lying there on my deathbed, I can look back and realise why I'm there. Anyway, I'm starting to waffle, and dogs need feeding, and so do I. So stay tuned, like and subscribe if you feel like it, and thanks for watching.